Welcome back to another edition of the Course Creation Incubator Podcast. I'm Gina Onativia, your host, your bulldog, your cheerleader, here to help you get stoked about your course creation and marketing, and hopefully simplify some of the steps that go into building your course. I want you confidently moving forward and building momentum, and hopefully this podcast sets you on that path. Now, a few months ago, I had a student who kept fiddling around with her pricing and wasn't getting the results that she wanted to see. And then she kept slashing her price, and I thought, oh man, this is not the path that I envisioned for her. And I'm seeing some of the different ways that students are pricing their courses, and I thought this is a great time for a pricing podcast. And it's a little bit of art and a little bit of science when it comes to pricing your course. There's no exact answer, but there are definitely some best practices. And there are some things that are working and some that are not. So that's what I want to talk about inside of this episode. Before I dive in today, there's something new I want to introduce as part of this podcast. I want to start doing some coaching episodes. So if you're interested in getting coached by me about whatever questions you have about your course, about building it, marketing, or selling it, I would love for you to apply to be on an upcoming episode. It's totally free. You just need to apply, and I'll put that link inside of the show notes. And wherever you're getting stuck, it could be pricing, it could be your course idea, or your course structure. I'd love to coach you through it as part of an upcoming episode. So check out the show notes for that link if you would like to get coached by me. Okay, let's talk some pricing strategy and really kinds of mistakes that I've been seeing. And because football season is starting up again, we'll call them penalties, just to have a little fun with it. And by the way, you know I love to pull my team into episodes, so I asked Becky, my online business manager, and Ivy, my tech manager, their thoughts about pricing strategies. And also now I've got Madi, who's my incredible communications assistant. So we're a small yet incredible team. Okay, first and foremost, the first penalty is randomly choosing a price. Now, this is one of the first questions I love to ask potential students is, what price point are you thinking? Because I'd like to see the thought process that's going through their heads. What kind of research have you done? Just like you want to validate your course idea or topic, you want to validate your pricing strategy and where you'd like to start. And that's about researching the competition, thinking through the transformation you're providing and what it's worth, and then also asking your potential students, what are you willing to pay for? Are you willing to pay for this transformation? Asking that question. Because a challenge that often comes up when I talk to people who have launched their courses and haven't sold is that they didn't get that validation that people would actually pay for the course they're offering. So in this day and age of freely available content, you want to make sure you're validating your price point and asking those questions. You're not just picking a price out of the air. You're doing your due diligence in terms of making sure that you've made an informed decision about how much you plan to charge. Okay, our second penalty is not charging what you're worth. And when I say not charging what you're worth, I mean you're not taking into account your time, your energy, your expertise, and you're undercharging because you're not confident enough to have faith in what your audience will pay for. Unfortunately, I see this all the time. I had an accelerator grad who went really low. And listen, I'm okay with starting low. I actually love this strategy. I talk about this all the time where you're starting at a certain price point and then you're going to build up from there. But you don't want to completely lowball yourself in your course because then it's harder to get to that target number. And by the way, great with starting lower, right? Maybe you're giving your students half off. But then have that end game number in mind. Like, I know this course is ultimately worth $597. I'm going to start at $297, but over the course of several launches or months or a year, I'm going to get it up to $597. So have that end game in mind, and also don't start too low. So I'm not going to start at $50 for that, right? That's too low. That's undercharging. That's not asking for what you're worth. Another piece to consider here is think about what your ultimate goals are for the course. And then, for example, with a low price offer, maybe it gives you money for ads and bringing more leads while also nurturing people for your next offer. Now, on the other hand, if you have a course that's going to require you to be on calls and show up live, that's worth more, and you need to factor in your time. If you want to make a profit off of your course, you have to factor in expenses for the course along with what you want to be paid for your time. Be mindful of your goals and price in a way that supports those goals and outcomes. Third penalty, feeling guilty for charging too much and therefore completely overdoing your course. This shows up a lot of times with course creators who just throw in some extra things as part of their course, even though they're not connected, because they feel like they need to stack the value, they need to sweeten the pot. I had an accelerator student who basically was giving away, she had a live program each week, plus she had a self-paced course, and she included that all as part of her package because she didn't have the confidence to raise her price or charge 2 tiers or for 2 different courses. She was overdoing it because she didn't have the confidence to say, this is what I should be charging. And she felt like she needed to stack the value. So don't do that. Again, it's going back to number 2, right? Charging what you're worth. You're providing a transformation. You're providing a service that's going to transform someone's life. And if they didn't have the money, they wouldn't buy your course. If they didn't want the transformation, they wouldn't buy the course. By the way, another area that shows up is bonuses. I've seen course creators who feel sheepish about charging a certain amount. So they add a bunch of bonuses that they have got just lying around. Don't do that. You don't need to do that, okay? Your course is providing an amazing transformation, like I just said, that is more than worth the price of admission. Another penalty I see is waiting too long to raise your price after a successful launch or a series of successful launches. I've seen this happen to my students as well, where they've had a series of successful promotions. Maybe they started out with 10, then they went to 50, and then they have bigger launches and the price stays the same. So if you're starting to see success down the line, don't be afraid to raise your price because you're going to have the confidence to do that. You know you have the results. People are buying your course. They're getting something out of that. You're listening to the testimonials because now you have the confidence to do that. People are buying your course. You're seeing the results of what's happening. You're getting the testimonials. This is how you scale your business. You raise the price. So don't be afraid to do that. Okay, here's a 5th penalty, and this came from my team, is putting out a high ticket course to a cold audience. So for example, maybe you've got a $1,500 course and you're putting it out to a cold audience that hasn't bought anything from you before. Now, I'm not saying it can't be done with sales calls and with different strategies, but what I've been seeing is that people might opt in for your freebie and then bam, you hit them up with the $1,500 course. You got to nurture them, right? You got to make them fall in love with you first and maybe buy a low ticket course from you, and then you can nurture them to that higher price point. Okay, and here's the last penalty. Launching a promotion with a super special price with the mention that it's only for a limited time and then leaving it up for months or even years at that price. Part of building raving fans in your business is building trust. You have to do that with integrity. If you're going to discount for a limited time, stick with that for the time frame. And yes, some people will miss out, but at the same time, your people will learn that if they want what you're offering, they need to act. They need to jump on it. So those are just a few of the penalties that we're seeing right now. And I want to leave you with a few strategies to consider for the future. Now, remember, your course is part of building a foundation for long-term success. It's not a one-off. So you want to price accordingly to that. Think about where your course is going to be in 6 months, a year, a few years. Take that into consideration. Don't price your course out unless you've validated that your people are willing to pay that price for what you're offering. Again, you want to leave room to raise your prices. So start off at a price that makes sense so you can build on that incrementally. All right, if you have other pricing questions that came up as you're listening to this episode, hit me up on Instagram or LinkedIn. I love questions for this podcast. And by the way, think about signing up for a spot to get some live coaching as part of this podcast. In the meantime, if you think I've provided value for you, please leave me a review. I love reading your comments. Next week, we're talking about social media. And I've got my longtime social media manager, Dejani Schaefer, on for next week. And we're having a really fun conversation about what's working now and how to simplify your social media efforts. Until next week, go create, be you and be brilliant, and get it done.